Statistics now comes in for manipulation in the name of woke. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is another declaration of truth from your host, Terry A. Hurlbut. You've heard the proverbs. There are three kinds of lies. Lies, shall we say, outrageous lies, and statistics. Figures don't lie, but liars figure. 2 days ago, Twitter offered proof positive of both these maxims. It also offered further proof, in case we needed any, that the Ivy League is not what it once was. John Harvard, and separately Elihu Yale, must be spinning in their graves to see what the institutions that bear their names have now become. Before I tell you why I say that, and give you the booby prize example, I do want to shout out to the prime sponsor of this channel, which is Conservative News and Views. Link in the description. And be sure to check out the awesome CNAV Store. Scroll down near the bottom for that link. Lots of great merchandise there, especially this t-shirt that I have chosen for today, which reads, 1984 was not an instruction manual. Yet again, somebody thought it was. One more thing. If you like this, what you're about to hear, you can like this video and click the bell icon to get a notice every time I come out with a new one. In fact, do you see the new icon, the heart shape with the US dollar sign in it? That's the super thanks icon. If you really want to keep these videos coming, click that and leave me a tip. Any currency will do, so long as it's legal tender. Now, meet Kareem Carr, whose Twitter profile belies his account title. He calls himself a data scientist, but he is really a student working on his Ph.D. at Harvard. I have links in the description to both his Twitter profile and his Harvard student profile. In the Twitter profile, he boasts, quote, I tweet about data science, what it is, how to do it better, why it matters to the rest of society, unquote Kareem Carr. His profile at Harvard says he has become a consultant in data science at the Institute of Quantitative Social Science. Well, if the thread he dropped 2 days ago is any indication, Harvard has very low standards for making someone a consultant. Fellow user Wokeness became his target when he published a bar chart that obviously triggered Mr. Carr. That's right, Mr. He is not a doctor yet. Now, I'll tell you a secret. When I was in the Ivy League, their faculties reserved the title doctor for doctors of medicine. My Econ 101 professor called that a self-imposed snobbery. But I digress. Anyway, this bar chart, to which I have a link in the description, has this title, Interracial Violent Crime Incidents in 2018. It defines three groups, white, black, and Hispanic. Now, the United States Census defines the term white to mean not of Hispanic origin. Hispanic origin trumps anything. It makes it a category by itself. The Bureau of Justice Statistics, the source of the chart, no doubt uses the same definition as the census. That chart shows two things. That when members of one race attack another, A, whites are disproportionately the targets of such attacks by either of the other two groups, and B, whites do not attack others nearly as frequently as those others attack whites. The numbers in the bar chart are absolute numbers, not per capita numbers. Whites still are a plurality, if not the majority. So, per capita numbers would show whites being even less offensive and blacks and Hispanics being more. And I mean offensive in the sense breaking the law, not necessarily rude. Enter Kareem Carr, ready to give those other groups a scientific excuse. To do that, he manipulates statistics. 2 days ago, he dropped a 15-tweet thread. His anchor tweet has a screen cap of Wokeness chart and Elon Musk's response to it. Wokeness' point was that the media focus on white-on-black crime, though it is the least frequent category of interracial crime, even in absolute terms. And Elon Musk, for his part, wonders why the media should have such a flawed focus. Well, Mr. Carr took exception to that, and I have links in the description to 8 of his tweets all together, so that you can see everything just once. And here's the text. This bar chart has attracted the attention of the richest man in the world. Let me walk you through how I would interpret it as a statistician and as a human. I am sure this data is in many ways dubious, and the claim that the media exclusively focuses on white-on-black crime is untrue. Psst, that's his opinion, and I've already shared with you facts that bear end wokeness out in a video I did yesterday. But let's set that aside for now. I want to talk about the biases in how people present data. I like to say statistics is critical thinking with numbers. Ha ha! As a statistician, I want these numbers to help me understand why things are happening and what I can do about it. We want to learn about causation, not just correlation. For this reason, how we frame the data is extremely important. Now, I would suspect if the media did disproportionately focus on white-on-black crime, he won't admit it, it would be because they have a good faith belief that the causal element in those particular incidents is anti-black racism. Since they are interested in highlighting that particular cause of crime, it would be reasonable to focus on that data. To understand if their lack of focus on black-on-white crime is unreasonable, we would need to ask ourselves the following question. Do we think that the primary cause of black-on-white crime in America is anti-white racism, or is it vastly more likely that it's because black Americans are disproportionately poor and white Americans are disproportionately rich? If we do think the causation is different, then it makes sense that the media's focus differs as well. This is why prior knowledge and expertise are so important in statistics. The way the original bar chart tallies up crime by the race of the victim and of the perpetrator imposes a conclusion on the viewer that crime is primarily monocausal and that the single most important cause is race. The chart does even more than that. It sets up the harm of crime as a harm done, not just to the individual, but to their entire race. Not necessarily. In cases where the crime is racially motivated, this makes sense, but not all crime is racially motivated. Framing all crime as a form of racial harm comes off as a white nationalist framing to me, and this presentation of the data leads the viewer down a merry path to white nationalist solutions. Notice that the chart excludes cases where the race of the victim and the perpetrator are the same. This reinforces the framing of crime as a form of harm that one race perpetrates against another, since incidents where it's the same race aren't even counted here as harms. The naive number cruncher treats everything the same and fumbles the data analysis as a result. The numbers for incidents where the race of the perpetrator and the victim are the same are probably huge, and that would make these numbers look minuscule, which would undermine the implicit argument for racial grievance being made here. The bar chart implicitly asks which races merely through their existence are the biggest problem for other races. It is a racially loaded question that leads us to a racially biased answer. It is a doorway to genocidal thinking. Here are some good questions to ask when interpreting plots on social media. What is the causal question? Do these data provide an answer? Are there relevant data missing? What are they implying we could do about it? Is that consistent with your moral principles? End of thread. I'll tell you right now, Mr. Carr does not want answers to the questions he asks at the end. In his mind, he knows the answer. Blacks attack whites because whites have all the money. Whites attack blacks because whites are racist. Here we go again. Racist is identical to white. Furthermore, he bases his moral principles on envy. let him who has more suffer more. A thief is an irregular wealth redistribution agent, and a murderer is taking justifiable revenge. None of these attitudes properly befits a scientist. We see here a shameless manipulation of statistics to serve a political end, and we also see him throwing off on his targets. Yesterday, another user answered Carr as he needed answering, with a 9-tweet thread to which I have links to 5 of the tweets. But before I share its transcript, I want to shout out to a sponsor who can really help you through the economic storms to come. That sponsor is OurSilverLines.com. You feel like you're working harder for your money just to get by? You are not alone. The fluctuating economy, the employment issues, and unexpected changes in life have left many families struggling over the past few years. Collecting gold and silver can help shield you against many of these challenges. But if you're like me many years ago, you don't know where or how to start. Our Silver Lines helps by connecting you with thousands of members who are learning the secrets to creating and protecting true wealth by collecting precious metals. Whether you just want to collect rare and unique coins or take advantage of the business opportunities this company provides, either way, they can help you learn to live an exceptional life. Visit OurSilverLines.com to learn how you can build a legacy for your future. And now, the thread by the user calling himself Wokal Distance. Here goes. Credentialed experts like this do not analyze data to find the truth. They interpret data through a woke lens and explain it in a manner that feels intuitive to woke people, thus removing the cognitive dissonance so the woke can continue ignoring the holes in their ideology. This is related to what Michael Navna calls hermeneutical tribes. Hermeneutics is about interpretation. Aside, in Greek, the word hermeneus means an interpreter. In fact, hermeneutics is a required subject in seminary. Moving on. The idea is that various social tribes are fighting over which group lens will be used to interpret reality, and which interpretation becomes the dominant narrative in society. Here, Kareem interprets data about media focused on crime statistics through the lens of the woke worldview, which says it is reasonable to think blacks commit crimes against whites because blacks are poor, while whites commit crimes against blacks because whites are racist. There is no evidence and no argument provided for either of these assertions, because the point is not to prove these assertions is true. It is to diffuse the cognitive dissonance of the woke faithful who might see the data as contradicting woke ideology. So, Kareem gives an interpretation through the lens of wokeness and says, of course the media focus on white on black crime. Yeah, well, wait a minute, after he said they didn't. Those people are racist. Blacks who commit crimes against whites aren't racist, they're just poor. And that's important because one way people make their views look correct is by showing how their view provides the best explanation of the data. Whichever worldview gives the most compelling explanation of the data will often be seen as correct. This is the phenomenon Kareem is tapping into. He is trying to make wokeness look correct, or at least not wrong, by using tenets of woke ideology to interpret data that contradicts wokeness in a way that resolves cognitive dissonance. That's the project he's got going here. This isn't about finding truth. It is about advocating for the woke worldview. By showing it can explain everything, he frames the data in woke terms. And then, boom, the data is explained by woke ideology, thus verifying woke ideology as correct. That's his project. He is a prophet for his hermeneutical tribe, interpreting the scriptures, the data, for the faithful so that they can see the truth of wokeness. End of thread. In reaction, Michael Navna, whom Wokal Distance quoted from the concept hermeneutical tribe, left a tweet, link in the description, to what he called the Evergreen Meme. It is an animated graphic based on the scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark when Indiana Jones is substituting a bag of dirt for a gold mask. Indy is labeled useful idiot, the bag of dirt is labeled woke social theory, the gold mask is labeled objective standards, and Indy's cohort is labeled tyrants. Two other users left a rather insightful dialogue. I've left links to two tweets in it, so between them and the tweets to which they replied, you'll get the full text. So, what do they say? A. It was seeing firsthand how academia contorts itself to accommodate people like Kareem that convinced me to go into industry. The guy can literally explain how 2 + 2 = 5, as if he's a deep and original thinker, rather than an object example of Dunning-Kruger. And Harvard plays along. Aside, A is talking about the Dunning-Kruger effect. David Dunning and Justin Kruger, writing from Cornell University in 1999, described how those who know the least think they know the most, and those with the least intellectual ability simply cannot recognize their own weakness and incompetence. Hold that thought. I'll come back to it. B. What's frustrating about the 2 + 2 = 5 thing is that it's basically lying about what the symbols mean. It's sleight of hand, taking advantage of people who don't know better. I say this as an aspiring engineer type who has been average through Calculus 2. Carr is a grifter. A. He might not understand that he's a grifter. The chief beneficiaries of our department's Vigri program were literally too academically weak to recognize how far they were below normal minimum standards. Aside, Vigri, V-I-G-R-E, that's vertical integration of research and education in the mathematical sciences. It's a scholarship program to encourage more Americans to take math. B. No Wokey believes they're a grifter, just as no Marxist believes Marxism is the problem. End of dialogue. One other person commented, as I have, on the apparently low academic standards at Harvard. Why else, he seems to ask, would Harvard even think to reward this person with a Ph.D.? Furthermore, the user says, quote, his analysis is just a bunch of sophist gobbledygook with no basis in numbers. It's laughable, close quote. I have the link in the description. Read it for yourselves. Finally, I have links to two more tweets from another dialogue describing a further consequence. A. Worse, he's credentialed by Harvard, a trusted elite institution used as a shield to give him the presumption of credibility. He's further amplified by media and journals that share the hermeneutic. It sounds like a conspiracy to normies, and what he says makes people feel good. B. I've heard many academics predicting a dilution of the brands of elite institutions like Harvard in the context of affirmative action. But this is certainly not helping. A. Only so many will be able to cash out the gravitas of the institution. I thought it would take a generation. Eliminating admissions tests and this stuff will speed it up. I already see STEM moving into managing business. Hiring can't trust other credentials to measure intelligence. Whoa! Oh, by the way, STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. A just said that if you major in STEM, you can now compete effectively in careers beyond STEM. Because if you don't have a good indicator of clarity of thought that a STEM degree confers, they think your thinking will be too fuzzy for them to use. And now, my analysis. Are data missing from the original justice statistics graph? Yes. Again, we see no denominators. So the problems of interracial crime and violence might be better in some respects and worse in others than that graph represents. Nor do we see any same race crime numbers that would allow a comparison? Now that's the one valuable question Carr asks. Hey, I give credit where credit is due, even if it's the only credit due a particular person. Furthermore, we see only a single snapshot. Where are the data that would show a trend? You need to show this not just in 1 year, you need to show it year to year to year. Any law enforcement officer knows that criminals attack those closest to them. Common street crime, which these statistics are supposed to measure, is an opportunistic phenomenon. No one goes out of their way to attack someone of a different race. Or they didn't. Are they doing it now? Again, it would help to know where these incidents are happening, to see where the perpetrators are finding their opportunities and under what circumstances. The problem is, no one else seems to be asking these questions. Kareem Carr asks one of them. But the legacy media are not asking any of them. Instead, they're drumming up resentment, and I talked about that just yesterday. I lived with statistics in medical school and as a fellow in medical information science. The fallacies in Carr's presentation are truly cringeworthy, and so are the gaping holes in legacy media coverage. But even that isn't the real problem. Once again, we have lies, outrageous lies, and statistics, but it is too pat to suggest, as that one other user did, that Mr. Carr exemplifies the Dunning-Kruger effect. Dunning-Kruger can explain ignorance and blithe overconfidence, but it cannot explain malice. Kareem Carr deliberately and maliciously misuses statistics to make the moral case for punishing whites, whether for the irregular fine system we call theft or for the equally irregular summary execution we call murder. He offers the same excuse. That does not mean that all who are not white even remotely conceive of making the same excuse. I single him out. He's just an especially bad actor there. Nor can we forget that many whites also offer the excuses Carr is offering. Race isn't the problem. Ideology is. Or it's one problem. The other problem are institutions of higher learning who lower their standards and allow such thinking to pass muster. Happily, Twitter has gotten better than it was. Time was when Twitter would not have allowed anyone to dispute Carr. That time has passed. For that, I am grateful. Links in the description of the article to Kareem Carr's profiles on Twitter and at Harvard, to the End Wokeness tweet that started all the trouble, to Kareem Carr's thread, to Wokal Distance thread, to Mike Nana's retort about the evergreen meme, to the Dialog introducing the Dunning-Kruger effect, to the tweet asking whether Harvard was giving Carr a Ph.D. as a gift, to the dialogue about dilution of university brands due to lowering of standards, to my Declarations of Truth Twitter account, and to conservative news and views. I have also left links to the awesome CNAV Store and to ourcivilized.com, as I also mentioned. You know already about how to like a video, turn on notifications, and leave a tip. On the end screen, I'm going to leave a subscribe link to this channel and a link to yesterday's video about whether legacy media are keeping race consciousness alive when it can and should die. This is Terry A. Hurlbut delivering another declaration of truth and reminding you to let the truth set you free.